autistic cats aside, we normally do a game review at about this this time. So let's kick this off. We're throwing chairs at Torn Tales, developed by Twist Play. It's developed on the Unity engine. You can pick it up for around 13 of your local currencies. What is it? Lead your party of 3 heroes on a quest to repair the torn pages of folklore. Evil has destroyed the tales that you love. Hack monsters and slash enemies throughout the torn tales in this real-time squad-based RPG. These guys did send us some keys, so we're going to take a look at it. So let's kick off the chairquisition. 1 chair means meow. 2 chairs means... I can't think of a good cat autism joke for 2 chairs. 3 chairs means that it's pretty good. 4 chairs means that's amazing. We also got our categories of Doom, mixed with the working, shiny sounds, controls, and fun. So let's kick this off. Ben, did Torn Tales make with the working?
Yes, ma'am, it did. Over here on the Ubuntu 1604 LTS, powered by an 8150, displayed by 980 at UHD. However, I played this one at 1080p just to be on the safe side. Nothing to complain about. Performance was fine at 1080p. It could use some graphical options. I'll talk more about that in the shiny and sounds. The only thing I didn't like with mixed with the working is in the options menu, not like on the front page with the big blink tag. There's an opt-out option for sending them anonymized statistics. That should always be opt-in, ladies and gentlemen. Learn lessons. Not enough to dig him a chair for, but we're starting off with a 4.
Yeah, they let you know right off the bat when you start the game that, hey, we're collecting statistics. And, you know, they do give you the opt-out button. But yeah, on Fedora 24, 64-bit, with the i7 6700K and the GTX 980, no real issues. Performance is a bit wonky, but that's to be expected for, you know, click export and whatever. So I'll give it 4 chairs so far.
Well, I can't do that because over here in Ubuntu Mate 1604 with the FX 8370E and the GTX 1080, you can very much tell that this is a Unity game because it always spawns on the wrong screen. I don't have separate X sessions, I just have the one big X session spanning across both these screens, and I have the left screen set as the primary monitor. The game just outright ignores that and always spawns on the right. Also, it can't seem to remember that the resolution is supposed to be 1920 by 1080 and not 2560 by 1080. So it gets dinged a chair. 3 chairs.
Didn't you want that 2560 by 1080p monitor? Anyways,
no, I wanted
the 3 chairs for mix with the working. Up next is Shining Sounds.
Not the worst jaggies I've ever seen in a game, but for fuck's sake, get me some anti-aliasing options up in this business, because this game doesn't really have any. It's basically 2x, deal with it, smile, that's all you're getting. What does it look like? Well, it looks like some well-done programmer art. Take from that what you will. Outside of the loading screen, the loading screen's a special blend of what the actual fuck's going on here. Your 3 protagonists, Green Arrow and Young Sanchez, they look all right, but Snowflame, wow, what is wrong with your face? I mean, seriously, I think Pedro's even going to touch on this later on. Oof. Mm-hmm. It does have sounds, and I can confirm. However, you know, I put on the soundtrack from Emerald City, a fine show that was unjustly canceled by the ass banjos at NBC. So, for the shinies and sounds, it shows up on my monitor, and it makes beeps and boops. So a solid 2 chairs for not completely fucking that up.
Yeah, this game. But by the way, good deep cut with Snowflame, the cocaine-powered superhero. His goddess is cocaine. It's good times. Or he's a supervillain, whatever. This game looks like Baldur's Gate done in Unity. I mean, Torment and Pillars get a pass on this because they're explicitly homages to the Infinity Engine games and those RPGs. Here, it's just kind of meh. It's like Ben said, it's programmer art. It's not much in the way of impressive. I can't really find any real faults with it other than it's kind of lazy. And it looks like a game from 15 years ago. And I mean, there are sounds. It's not really enough to warrant any real attention. I'll discuss what I was listening to later on while playing this game because there's definitely some things. Oh my god, I don't care about the book reading cinematic stuff. I skipped past it because I just can't be fucked. 2 chairs.
Yeah, no, you can. Well, they say that you get some anti-aliasing, but you can't really pick it since it's tied to the presets. And as far as I could tell, it doesn't work. Now, if you really want to, you can get some MSAA or SSAA. If you add the GLFSAA mode and you have an NVIDIA card, and you had that particular environment variable followed by %% to the game's advanced launch options on Steam. There'll be the description of the show notes if you want to look at how you can figure out which value your particular GPU supports. But lack of AA is the least of this game's problems when it comes to aesthetics. The sound effects can be summed up into grunts and jingles. The background music, it's the exact same 50-second loop repeated ad nauseum. The effect you get as the rest of the map sort of pops in, I get that it was supposed to look like someone was drawing it on a book. What it does end up looking like is that the wireframe pops in before the textures load. Also, what do the in-game proper aesthetics add to the narrative when the whole plot is told in those still cutscenes that it's just someone literally reading out from a book? Yeah, no, 2 chairs.
All right, well, that's 2 chairs for the shiny and the sounds. Up next is the controls, Ven.
Hey, man, everything works. Throw a couple of air quotes around works, but, not necessarily stretching the definition, but, all right, maybe just a little bit. I kind of lost track how many times the AI just genuinely fucked off and flipped the hell out after I gave it an order. You genuinely get the impression that you're not really in control in this game. You're basically issuing suggestions and kind of sitting back and just watching the hilarity ensue as I don't even want to call it pathfinding. It's like a blindfolded rabbit emu on a meth binge trying to get to point A to point B if there's more than 3 enemies on the screen at a single time. Not a huge fan of that. It's not broken. What I'd really like is to genuinely be able to split my characters apart instead of kind of having this group thing going on. More about that in the fun section. Can't really blow it completely apart, but for that AI flipping, it was like, go here, and one guy will just wander off and get stuck in a corner, like flipping back and forwards. I mean, something that I haven't seen since like the NES days. You're losing 1 for that, but you're still getting 3.
Yeah, I mean, you click on things, and then you occasionally press 1 to 3 or quirr. And, other things will happen. Sometimes how you direct them to, other times no. Odd times you get an item that lets you press the space button, and I'm not sure if those things actually activate because they trigger the cooldown, and that's about it. One gripe I do have is that camera rotation only works if you don't have the map up. So you have to hit M if you want to get a better angle on something, especially when, say, a treasure chest pops up on the map. And you're like, shit, where do I go? I can't find it because it's hidden behind something that you need the camera controls to rotate in order to do. I mean, yeah, it's kind of point and clicky. The combat is very, very uninvolved, especially if you're one of the people controlling it. Oftentimes, it just means that you're influencing the position of where people are standing, and that's about it. So, for an RPG where you're supposed to care about your allies and whatnot, it doesn't really enable it. I gotta give it 2 chairs for that.
I get a feeling that in this game, controlling a character is pointless. I wish the game would just give me an option to unselect all characters in combat and just let them do the fighting, because it seems when I have direct control of any given character, at one point during combat, it's just going to stand there gormlessly doing fuck and all while the AI-controlled ones automatically readjust their targeting to the next enemy over. I don't feel like I'm in control of that character. I feel like I'm actively cock-blocking it. That may also be because the combat has absolutely no impact to it. Dr. Jekyll so far has only transformed into Mr. Hyde right at the end of combat. So for me, has been fucking pointless. And the moment you start the game, you're bombarded with percentages and other MOBA-like terms and item stats, which they just feel so out of place, it's not even pretty. So for controls, it gets 2 chairs.
All right, well, that's 2 cheers for the control segment. By the way, you can unlock stuff that cause the hide thing to go on more, but I'll get to that in the next segment, which is fun. Ben, did you have fun?
And it's absolutely amazeballs. And all right, short and simple, here we go. You basically play as one character with 3 bodies, and yes, that controls about as well as one might imagine. You start off learning your leveling skills. It's a system that clearly had more thought put in it than the actual game itself. Click on enemies, you make some tea, since the AI will, nope them basically without your input. And say the first 40 minutes of this game, sit back, relax, make some tea, chill out. You watch the aforementioned AI just get stuck in new and interesting ways. At least it keeps you entertained in that way. Eventually, you're going to get extremely bored and pray for an unrecoverable bug that will prevent you from playing the game and having to review it any further. Unfortunately, this was not delivered to me. But the icing on the chainsaw, after those roughly 35-40 minutes, your tutorial and the first bit of your first level, you get dumped into the first boss battle equipped with all of the skills that I just mentioned. You get to die, and die. The difficulty curve in Torn Tales resembles a hockey stick with half the business end cut off. Basically, this game put me on cruise control for that first 45 minutes and expected me to get good at the drop of the proverbial hat organ. Yeah, you know what? No. I spent 20 minutes learning how to nope the big bad wolf, only to say, you know what? Fuck right off. Don't really care, because unlike Hollow Knight from last week, I didn't have the slightest desire to revisit this game. It didn't do that thing that it did a great job at pissing me off. Just go Godzilla walking on the water, throwing them up. Hollow Knight pissed you off, but it maintained the, I can come back and fuck this thing. I can fuck this thing. It's just not here with this game. Not at all. F it, man. Why? Because, well, at the end of the day, take that shot. This is generic RPG, indie action adventure, the game. And if we're being honest, it does a shite job at even pulling that off. 1 chair.
Yeah, there's not really much variety in this game. The levels are all labyrinthine, but unlike Hollow Knight, where it's properly jaquade, you can loop back on yourself, you can find shortcuts, you can legitimately explore. There are some branching paths that will occasionally lead to a chest, more often than not lead to nothing, and then it puts you back on the straightaway. This is the illusion of choice. I mean, beyond that, you just click, you wait, you occasionally kite if the enemy blows up. Later on, you get to fight the exploding frogs that will just fuck your guys up, because if you let the AI do what it wants to do, the frogs explode with poison damage at the end of or after they die. So if you're in that radius, then you just get fucked. So sometimes you gotta run away. Hyde is by far the most fun character, but you gotta load up with the abilities that boost his blood toxicity to let him transform. Otherwise, he's pretty useless, because he's the only character without a cheap ranged attack. And the story is really, really dumb as well, because what is a medieval folk hero, a Scottish science fiction character, and the subject of an 1800s grim fairy tale have to do with each other? Well, aside from the fact that they're all in the public domain and you can just use them. Not really much else. Later on, once you unlock all of the abilities, because once you get to about level 12, I think, you have all of the main abilities unlocked. You can unlock runes, and some of them are kind of interesting that might impact how you play the game. But you don't get to pick them. No, you get a random shot at 1 for each level up point, and that is just fucking stupid. I didn't really have a issue with the difficulty spikes until about once you get to the level that requires you to be 10, just because all of a sudden then they have enemies that have additional effects beyond them trying to stab at you. I remember the second boss, the Sheriff of Nottingham. I beat him the first time around. I got a bug where they kept stun locking Hyde, and they couldn't do damage to him, so they just kept attacking him while Robin Hood and Snow White kept picking him off, and it was boring. I found myself wondering, when will this end? And here's the thing: if I can play your game while fully paying attention to YouTube videos, usually what has happened is I've played this game so much that I can just do it brainlessly because I've forged neural pathways that can allow me to play this game without paying attention, or I'm not really being engaged. In this case, it is the latter. This is not a fun game. It's just really boring. I will give it 1 chair.
Yeah, no, it's actually kind of hard to find a game that manages to do everything wrong. On a technical level, it always starts on the wrong monitor. The in-game anti-aliasing doesn't work. The in-game visuals look horrible. The sound is annoying and repetitive. The story is told completely separate from gameplay in non-interactive cutscenes, which I don't think I need to remind everyone how bad that is when we're talking about an interactive medium. The character art for Dr. Jekyll and Robin Hood, they look alright. Snow White and Mr. Hyde, on the other hand, look like they were beaten with several different iterations of the ugly stick. The combat, Reed, the only thing that you do in this game is either piss easy or fuck you, because fuck you hard and has absolutely no meat to it. Even though the levels seem to have forks on the road, they are just the laziest possible way to have branching paths in level design. Now, last week, with Hollow Knight, I mentioned negative space in level design. In broad strokes, that is the, say you're trying to traverse a labyrinth, the negative space are the dead ends. But in video games, that can also be applied to entire areas which, while not exactly dead ends, serve no mechanical purpose at that point or ever. In this case, there's ever. In Torn Tales, there are only ever 2 options in those branches. You either find a dead end, which may or may not have a chest, or you find a way to progress, the way forward. That is elementary school grade level design. It's really hard to get any and everything that could save your video game wrong, and yet here we are. It's not fun. It looks like ass. Doesn't really feel like you're in control of it. And it's just, the story is not interesting at all. It's really bad fan fiction. 1 chair.
Yeah, that's 1 chair for the fun segment, and we tally that all up. It squeaks by with 2 chairs. So, gentlemen, final thoughts.
I was kind of reading through the discussion forums, and someone brought up, hey, wouldn't this be better with multiplayer? Yeah, it fucking would. It absolutely would. It would be better if 3 people, even if it was just local multiplayer, at least you would have some sense of control of the character, and you might find a character in the game, one of the 3, to identify with and actually want to build that character instead of micromanaging all 3. No one's going to play this fucking thing that long. You have 12 reviews on your page. Come on. Let's be real about this. And they said, well, maybe if this one sells good enough, maybe our next game will have multiplayer. It's like, you're not going to get there with this one.
Yeah, no, it's even with multiplayer, sure, let each different player control each different character, trine style, but it's not, I don't think it would be a redeeming feature, even if you're just talking shit about the specific game with your friends while you're playing it. In Torn Tales, it just wouldn't save it. It's not fun. It's not engaging. It's not captivating. It's just bad.
Yeah, this game's fucking boring as shit, man. Like the whole inventory system is really, really dumb. You keep getting the same items over and over and over again, and there's just a lot of things I can just nitpick about this game, and it's not really enjoyable. I would not recommend picking it up. So